a video on a basic custard tart, but not really basic because I'm going to use cream instead of milk. Oh, I'm going to use double cream, so thick heavy cream instead of milk, which makes a world of difference. I'm not going to use sweet pastry, I'm just going to use some normal pastry that I've got in the freezer. So it's a 10-inch tart ring. How many portions we get out of that? We might get 10 portions. So let me have a think. So that's in half. That again. Yeah, we'll probably get 10 portions out of that. So it's a 10-inch, about 26 centimeters, something like that. And we're going to need about 400 grams of pastry to do that case. I don't need to bake the cases blind today. I'm going to roll the pastry out today. I'm going to stick them in the fridge overnight, and it will dry out slightly, and it will just make it a little bit easier to bake them blind. We need to bake them blind when it's custard tart, because they're not going to be in the oven long enough, or the oven's going to be hot enough to cook the pastry without overcooking the egg or the custard mixture. All we're really doing with the custard tart is we're just introducing enough heat just to set the custard solid. We don't, which isn't enough heat to kind of cook the pastry base as well. So we're best off cooking the pastry base beforehand. That's what I found anyway. There are other people do other things. This is the way I do mine. So there's about 500 grams here, so there'll be a bit of waste, but I've got another bit of pastry which I can use the waste in. So I'm not going to share my pastry recipe because it's pretty straightforward. It's half fat flour and then water. I probably put in more water than most people, and I think my pastry is particularly nice, so I don't know. And also, I think with pastry making and bread making, you're supposed to, with bread making, what you do is you mix all the ingredients together and then leave it for an hour, and then all the water gets absorbed into all the flour completely. And I think we don't do that with pastry, and I think we should. And I think pastry probably needs a bit more water than we actually put in. So that's about right. I don't know how thick that is, but about that much. Feels a bit thick actually, but doesn't matter. So yeah, there's way too much. So those are about 500 grams. And it's just a case of pushing down into the corners like that, and then we'll trim some of it off because I need it for the other one. Like that. So we're just pushing it down to the corners. And like that, and then we'll just cut off the excess. We'll just weigh it. Actually, I think there was 500 grams, so we'll just be able to, I'll be able to tell you exactly how much pastry is in that pastry case. I always forget, but if I'm making pastry and I've got some left over, it just goes in the freezer anyway, so it doesn't really matter when you're making a lot of pastry. But I kind of think if you want to make something from scratch, you don't want to be making too much pastry. You just really want to make as much as you want. Then we just go around, neaten it up a little bit. These scraggly bits are fine. It's going to look kind of quite rustic by the time we're finished. I'm not going to shave all that off. I might do, but probably not. So that's all the trimmings. I've got scales. So we'll just see how much that weighs. Yeah, that's 134. So there's about 370 grams in a 10-inch pastry case. So then that bit will get used with that bit to make that one, so I'm going to make two. So but anyway, that's it. That can live in the fridge overnight, or somewhere cool. If it's in the middle of winter and you've got a garage, that'll be fine, but I'm not going to bother covering it. It's just going to sit in the fridge and it'll just dry out just that little bit and just make it easier to bake blind tomorrow when I've got a little bit more time. So baking the pastry case blind, pretty straightforward. What we're going to do is going to stick some holes in the bottom of the pastry case, stop it from rising too much. I don't know why you should do that when you've got the baking beans going in anyway, but I always do it. It's just something I always do. So then a bit of baking parchment with some old, that's no good, with some old rice in, which I use over and over and over again. You can buy proper baking beans. You can use copper coins. You can use peas. It's just I've got some cheap rice that I've used over and over and over again, so it's just what I use. And all the purpose really is just to stop the pastry from collapsing in and rising too much, so we're actually left with a proper pastry case. So 150 degrees, we'll bake this until the pastry's set. Not particularly any colour to it, and then we'll take the baking parchment out and the rice, and then we'll just let it cook a little bit more and get a little bit more firmer before we give it a wash with egg. But anyway, so 150 degrees, about 15-20 minutes, probably 15 minutes. Pull the paper out, give it another 10 minutes, just so it cooks all the way through, and then that'll be the next. Then we'll show you kind of the next process. Right, so 25 minutes. And the pastry cases are ready for the baking beans, well, baking rice to be taken out. You'll see, and then we'll just put it back in for another 10 minutes just to crisp up the pastry just a slight little bit. So it's set in its shape that it wants to be, so it's not going to sag or do anything like that. So we can feel that it's cooked, it just needs to film up slightly. So it's getting nice and crisp on the outside, it just needs to crisp up there, but it's not going to puff up or sag in now that the beans have kept it in place until it's firm. So another 10 minutes and then it'll be ready, and we'll put some glaze in it. Right, so it's 10 more minutes in the oven and it's just firm now, and it's starting to go a little bit crisp. It's got holes in the bottom, so anything that we put in is going to leak out the holes, which is not what we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to egg wash the base and the sides, and what this will do is it'll seal up any other holes. It's not going to rise anymore if we put it back in the oven, so it's going to seal up those holes. If there's any cracks that formed in the pastry, it's going to seal those as well, and it's also going to make it stay crisper for longer once we put the filling in and cook it, because there's going to be a barrier between the filling and the pastry, so it won't go soft, or well, it'll take time, it'll take longer to go soft, so the pastry will stay nice and crisp for longer. So it's just, don't have to do it, you can risk it if you don't want to, but it just covers up those holes. You just need to make sure that it gets into all the holes like that, and then back in the oven for 5 minutes, and then that'll cook the egg, seal the holes. Lovely, lovely. There we go, out the oven after 5 minutes, all nice and sealed, so nothing's going to leak through that pastry. You can do that the day before. I'm not going to cook the custard tarts until tomorrow because I'm not in any kind of rush. I'm in the kitchen, so I can think, I might as well cook those today. I don't have to do it tomorrow, so I've got a little bit more time tomorrow. But anyway, so you can do them ahead of time, and they can live in the fridge for a couple of days. They don't have to even live in the fridge. They can just live in a cool place for a couple of days and in a sealed airtight container, and they will be fine. Easy peasy, eh? So, custard tart time. We've made the pastry cases, and we are now going to make the custard that goes in them. So, slightly a little bit different. Normally, you would just add all the ingredients, cold ingredients together and pour it into the tart case. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to boil the cream because it will speed up the cooking process, and it'll also make sure that the sugar is completely mixed into the cream and melted, and then there'll be less chance of it splitting. When you boiling cream in a pan on top of the stove, you just have to be a little bit careful, and it's best off just to start the pan with some water in it, just to cover the bottom of the pan, and then you'll find that the cream won't stick. If it sticks, it starts to burn. That's not what you want. The recipe is pretty straightforward. So it's per 10-inch tart, it's 600 milliliters of double cream, so double cream, heavy cream from wherever you are, but the good stuff, not like the pouring cream, the stuff that you can whip up, but not whipping cream, the kind of size up, although they don't really sell whipping cream anymore. I don't know why, but anyway, so 600 milliliters, it's probably a pint to tell you the truth, and then we've got, because we'll do it per tart, so per tart it's 150 grams worth of sugar, and because we're boiling the cream, we can use granulated, so the stuff that you put in your coffee rather than stuff that you put in and make cakes with, because it's going to melt, so it doesn't really matter. And so that's 150 grams, that's about 3 tablespoons. I don't like it too sweet find it a little bit, I don't know, I just find, I don't like things overly sweet, but I would say I put 3 in, but you could put 4 tablespoons in. So 4 tablespoons would be 200 grams. And then per tart, 4 eggs, 4 whole eggs. If you wanted to make it a little bit richer, you could just use egg yolks. So I would say per 10-inch tart, I would use 8 egg yolks. The only problem with that is then you've got to do something with the 4 egg whites that are left over. So whole eggs just kind of cut costs down a little bit. But if you want to make it richer, that's fine. Which takes us on to, I was thinking about this yesterday. Oh yeah, and so I've also got the egg that was left over from, just need to turn the oven down a bit, otherwise pastry cases. The pastry cases are in the oven already, so I'm kind of making it up as I go along. I'm imagining that I've baked blind the pastry cases. I've put the egg wash in, and it's sealed them. And then the next stage is to, instead of taking the pastry cases out, cooling them down, I'm imagining that I'm doing it all in one go. So we're going to cook them in the oven. So they're in the oven at 100 degrees. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, so I've got the leftover egg, whisked egg from yesterday, which I lined sealed pastry cases from, so that's going to go in as well. We're not going to waste that. I'm not going to use it in anything else, so we might as well use that. So I was thinking, I'm using double cream. You don't have to use double cream, you can just use whole milk if you want to keep the cost down. Using the cream just makes it a little bit rich, well, a lot richer, and certainly a lot more luxurious. I have made it in the past with different things, so I did do a yogurt version. So I bought a thick yogurt or a thin yogurt, and I used that in the same quantities as the cream or the milk, as you would kind of do. And what that does with the yogurt, it kind of brings out a lemony kind of flavour to it. It was just plain yogurt, but that works really well as well. So you kind of think it can also be a whatever you've got. So if you've got some ricotta, like a pot of ricotta or a little bit of ricotta left in the fridge that you've used for something else, use up the ricotta in the custard tart. If you've got some leftover mascarpone, use that in the custard tart. Anything like that you've got that can that will enrich it. Just the advice would be to pour the extra thing that you've got, like the ricotta or the mascarpone, into the measuring jug, and then pour cream or milk on top of it till you get 600 millilitres. So it kind of, then you can use whatever you've got up. So, right, what we'll do is we'll wait for the cream. So instead of adding the sugar to the cream and boiling it all up, there's more volume, so it takes longer to heat up. So and there's also more chance that it's going to burn if the sugar's in it as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to boil the cream first, and then I will add the sugar, and then we will add some of the mixture into the eggs, mix it all around. We can't add the eggs into the cream, otherwise there's a tendency that they'd want to instantly overcook. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of the hot cream mixture, mix it in with the eggs, and then kind of combine them all together. And then nothing will split, and we won't get scrambled eggs, which is not what we want. You don't have to worry about that if you're not heating up the cream. So there are pitfalls to kind of the way things you can do. So do we have to wait around? Have I got anything else to say before I pause the camera and we'll wait until the cream is boiled? I don't think there's anything else to say. Yeah, so I'll pause the video, and then we'll wait for the cream to boil, and then we'll start the video again with something more interesting rather than me waffling, which I do a lot, but I've generally got not a lot to say, but there's always things to kind of explain. I don't know, I make videos that if I didn't know how to do something, that the questions I'd want to ask to know how to make a custard tart, I kind of think about what questions I would ask someone teaching me how to make a custard tart, and then I answer those kind of questions, if that kind of makes sense. If that makes sense. You know, I think I'm not particularly much of a fan of people kind of going, you add this to this, 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 and this, and you cook it at this temperature, and this is how it turns out like. I think that's all very well, but if something goes wrong, I want to know why it's gone wrong, and also understand the processes that we're kind of going through. So that's my rationale for me waffling. I'm probably giving too more information than most people would actually require. But anyway, we'll wait until it boils, which won't be long. We'll pause, and then we'll come back. Right, so cream is coming up to the boil. Also, by adding the sugar, by boiling the cream and then adding the sugar, we're going to stop the cream from boiling over. So it would be very difficult to stop the cream from boiling over if the sugar is already in it. But because we're going to put the sugar in it, it's going to cool the cream down and it's going to stop it from boiling over. So, like that. With sugar in, which is going to melt the sugar. And then, so we've got the egg from yesterday, which is only half an egg's worth, but that can go in. I'm not going to use it for anything else, so we don't like to waste all that. Just make a little bit of difference. And then we've got 8 eggs. Just making 2 tarts. But the recipe is, well, it's 4 eggs per 10-inch tart. Also, all kind of depends on how deep the tart mould is using it as well. So, I'll tell you what we'll do. I will, when we pour the cream back into the jug, I'll make a note of how much liquid we've got from 300 millilitres, 1.2 litres of heavy cream, double cream, 8 eggs, and 300 grams of sugar, and then you can get an idea. Might just be some kind of thing to know as well. Yeah, I'm not going to put any spices in or herbs. I'm not going to put anything in it like cinnamon or nutmeg or vanilla or cardamom or anything like that. We can do. It's just I'm not going to. I don't know why. I just kind of quite like that set kind of custard tart kind of flavour. So we can't add these eggs into there because there's a tendency that what we'll want to do is it'll want to cook the eggs, which is not what we want to do. So we need to slowly get those eggs up to a better temperature. They were at room temperature, so we'll just add a couple of ladles full of the boiling cream liquid, or the boiled cream liquid, which will just bring the eggs up to temperature, not cook them, like that. And then shall we risk pouring it into the pan? No, I think there'll be enough room. Making a mess of things, so, and then we can pour this into there. Ooh, a little bit full, and then is that a good mix? That's not far of it actually cooking and setting, so it won't take that long cooking things in the oven. So best way to do this is pouring, using the jug to pour into, so you won't be able to see it. So the tart moulds are already in the oven. Get up to 100 degrees, and then we'll, because all we really want to do is set this, we don't actually want to cook it. So tart moulds are in the oven, and we will pour the mixture into the tart moulds without taking them out of the oven. It just saves having to precariously move things from on top of the stove into the cooker. And then we can just, you can't see, like that. That's them both done, and then we'll cook them in the oven gently until they're set. Might take 15 minutes, might take 20 minutes, just there's a little bit of wobble in the centre, but I pull them out at that stage. It's just easier to use the jug to pour into the tart mould as they're already in the oven, rather than lift up the full tart mould that's got the custard in it and then put that in the oven. That's a little bit tricky to do things like that, but anyway, so best off in the oven that way. But anyway, there we go for the moment. So one of the tarts is ready, so we can pull it out. Squeaky's still got the squeaky oven door. And I'll show you just how much wobble there needs to be in the tart. It just needs to be cooked. Try not to burn my fingers. So, it's just set. It's going to carry on cooking as it cools. We don't want to cook it any more than this, because what will happen is it'll start to souffle up. That's not what we want, and then the egg will potentially overcook. But, so you can move it, and you can see that kind of wobble in it. So let that go cold, and then you need to let it go cold. You can't cut it now, otherwise it'll still be quite liquid custard. So it needs to cool. Let it go cold, and then we can cut into it, and it will be delicious. So how long is it cooked for? I'm not entirely sure. Let's have a guess. Probably 20 minutes, 100 degrees, 20 minutes. No, actually I turned it up a little bit, so it's probably like 110 degrees for 20 minutes. Check it every 10 minutes until it starts to look like it's cooking around the outside, and then you've got to check it on a more regular basis. You don't want to overcook it. It wants to be slightly undercooked. It's going to carry on the heat. It's still going to set the custard a little bit more. But anyway, there you go. Custard tart made with double cream, but yogurt's really nice. Bit of mascarpone, bit of ricotta, something like that. Just to kind of, if you wanted to go ridiculous, you could use clotted cream, which would turn it into something absolutely divine and ridiculous. Or you can just use whole milk and eggs. You can use whole eggs. You can use just egg yolks. Double up the amount of yolks. So if you use 4 whole eggs, use 8 yolks. That'll make it super rich as well. So you wouldn't necessarily have to use the cream. You could just use the milk. If you were going to just use egg yolks, you could just use milk, and that would be a richer form of custard tart than just a whole egg and a milk one. And then you kind of go up the scales of how luxurious you want to make it. It's not a perfect pastry cake. I don't like perfection. I like things to actually look like someone's actually made them rather than coming out of the factory. Yeah, but there you go. If I cut into it, I'll take a picture and we'll do a bit of a thing. But what? That's 10 good sized portions out of that one, or 8 if you're feeling greedy, or all of it if you're extremely greedy. But there you go. Easy peasy-ish. Right, so we have custard tart. Doesn't that look shiny and nice? So we'll give it a cut up, and we'll have a look at the portions. So we'll get 10 out of it. I won't cut it all up. I'll just do a portion. So in half. Serrated knife's always best because the pastry's just that little bit crunchy. Move that around. So it'll just fall off there, and there you go. So can we see? I'll just move the camera. And there you go. Like that. That looks a lot better, doesn't it? So nice and creamy. Hasn't split, and that's because we boiled up the cream beforehand. So yeah, that's my recommendation on how to make a custard tart. You don't have to use cream, you can just use milk, but there again, you don't have to use milk or cream. You can use parts of old bits of yogurt. Obviously everything's that's in date, but like yogurt, ricotta, mascarpone, those type of things all contribute and all make things kind of quite nice. Flavourings, vanilla is always good, a little bit of cinnamon or nutmeg, or a little bit of cardamom. I would say 4 cardamom pods per custard tart is nice, and strain them out. Bring the liquid up to boil, and infuse the cardamom in that as it comes up to the boil, and then strain them out, and then you get rid of the seed. But anyway, there you go. Custard tart, easy peasy, much nicer than anything you can buy.